Is being erased right under our noses, Australia, and those in power are facilitating it. They're doing nothing to keep Australia Australian. The latest example of this is we are now home here in Sydney to the largest metal statue of some sort of Hindu idol. It's a 49-foot metal statue of Neelkamp Varney. And here's a little bit of the video that Channel 9 showed to viewers. Get a load of the size of this thing.
Arms raised to the heavens, a new beacon for thousands of Hindus.
To see it in person is truly heart-touching.
At 15 metres, the new sculpture at Kemps Creek is the tallest metal statue in Australia, and there's only 2 others like it in the world.
Now, this complex is ginormous. It's the size of 14 football fields. It has a Hindu temple, that ginormous thing. I don't know about you, but when I look at that, I just feel like I'm in Asia. And I have been to India, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Indonesia. That is what I expect to see in those countries, not in my home nation. Thank you very much. Now, this was done by an organisation called the BAPS Swaminarayan Organisation, and one of their volunteers put it better than I could. Her name's Nirali Daya. She migrated to Australia when she was 14. She said, the values depicted here at this compound are the ones we grew up with. Oh, I'm so happy for you, Nirali. Being surrounded by my culture gives me a sense of calm. Yeah, me too, love, but I don't get that luxury anymore. And I feel proud of how inclusive Australia has become. This value system will serve as a reference point for future generations. I don't know about you, but when I see stuff like this in my home country, it feels like a monument of conquest. There's no other country in the world that would allow Australians, to erect a giant kangaroo or anything of the sort. I'd rather a giant burger, a giant snag, something, anything that reflects my culture in my country. Another quote from the president of the Hindu Council, Sai Pravastu. He said, Australia has many temples, but this precinct goes beyond religion. It speaks to the multicultural fabric of Australia and invites everyone to experience the ancient Indian value system as a way of life. Mate, this is Australia. We have our own value system. We don't want to be invited to participate in an Indian value system or an Indian way of life. You come here to assimilate, not to colonize. I've said it every single time, even say a Diwali celebration comes up or Ramadan, I don't care what it is. In order for Australia to maintain any kind of cohesive culture of our own, sure, let various groups celebrate in their own time, that's perfectly fine. But we now have taxpayer-funded foreign holidays that are ratepayer as well, because the councils love to get in there, love to have their photo ops. This is one of the major reasons why Australia, much like every other country in the West, is undergoing a massive identity crisis, because when they say multiculturalism, it means you can come to my country, but behave like you're in your own. And we facilitate it. I'm sick and tired of it. This kind of thing, in my personal opinion, that's all it is, does not belong in my home country.
So should they have the right to exercise their religion in Australia?
Absolutely, but not this. Can you imagine, here's a question for you. Can you imagine if a church wanted to erect a 49-foot Christ the Redeemer, like Brazil style? Can you imagine us getting an approval? Rich people, help me out here. Get in touch. Back me up. I will head up that project, see if I can get it done. I bet your bottom dollar I wouldn't even get a look in.
But if you were able,
single council
but if you bought land out at Kemp's Creek, which isn't doing a great deal and wanted to build Christ the Redeemer on it, why would they knock it back? Like, I don't understand why they would knock it. Look, it's private land. Someone's paid for it. They put a monument up that speaks something to their religion. It's not a mosque. So I'm not that worried about it, to be honest. I don't know the last time a Hindu killed someone in this country on the basis of their religion.
If you talk to Christians in northern India, they'll tell you a very different story about hindrance and persecution. Because there have been thousands of Christians killed there because they've implemented laws where it is illegal to convert anybody. And then people go around charging Christians with having tried to convert them, and the mob rules as well documented just a couple of years ago. And the Indian Prime Minister was here in Australia while that was taking place, and Anthony Albanese, you remember, treated him like a rock star at a major venue here, and nothing was said about what was being done to Christians. But I think your example of Christ the Redeemer, I mean, I wouldn't put it down in Western Sydney. I'd put Christ the Redeemer at the opening of Sydney Harbour and put it there. Can you imagine all the lefties screaming theocracy, separation of church and state? They'd say it was inappropriate. The villains, if you want to use that term here, are not the Indian people in Western Sydney doing what they are legally able to do. And we've created an environment to do that, and good on them, good luck to them. The problem is not Indian people celebrating their culture in this country. The problem is Australian people who have abandoned our own country, and we deride it rather than celebrate it. And then we get upset that other cultures are moving in and setting up their own little ghettos. It's not their fault, it's our fault. I was talking to a taxi driver some time ago who was talking about spices and stuff. And I said, where do you get that stuff? And he says, oh, there's this place, there's all these Indian shops, and he says, it's just like being in India, actually. And I smiled and I said, well, what's the point then of being in Sydney if where you hang out is just like being in India? He said, it's safer and it's cleaner. And that's kind of the point, isn't it? Creating your own subculture within a more prosperous...
Of course, and why would you not take advantage of that if someone offers it to you?
Not wrong.
And this is the thing, I'm not particularly worried about the statue, but what it is indicative of is the mass migration that has hit this country. And you look at Melbourne now, the number one surname in Melbourne now? Singh. Right? So what does that tell you about the demographic change that we've had in Australia? And we've done it to, well, I mean, not you and I, we've not voted for parties that have actively tried to do it, I don't think. But that is what has been done to us by government, is that in such a short period of time, we have had rapid, large migration hit this country. What is it, Liz? How many people in this country got here last year? You've said the number before.
The one I keep repeating is the fact that a third of us weren't born here.
So
the rate of immigration, in order for that to be possible, a third of our population...
It is happening so fast, and then you get land that is, of course, bought to put statues up to religious monuments, and we're talking about how we can't get houses in this country, but of course all these migrants who come to this country need to live in. Geez, we've got problems. So we're speaking of problems, Malcolm Turnbull. Now look, I know by talking about this that I am giving him what he wants.